free to play versus pay to win. Grinding the game and earning everything you get versus swiping your credit card and being provided everything you need to succeed in the game. Good players versus great players. This is OG and welcome to the channel. As you can see, we are here to discuss free to play versus pay to win, and it is a very controversial and hot topic always, not just in eFootball, not just in all football games, but in games across the board, because now more than ever, these development companies realize that they can not only charge you for the game or even provide it as a free-to-play game to draw you in, but they can get ridiculously rich off of microtransactions. Whenever you purchase something in-game, it is a microtransaction. In the case of the football games, right, whether it's eFootball, FC, or UFL, you get the game. For UFL and eFootball, they're considered free to play. For FC, they have the classic yearly release, and each year you buy the game. But in all three, the one thing they have in common is the players in the game either being free to play or pay to win. So on one side, if you grind the game, you're obviously going to start with a very low team, and every step of the way, you're going to have to earn every player that you get. So it's going to take a while before you get that top team, and you may never get to that level that a pay-to-win player gets, because immediately they get that player, right? They don't have to earn anything. So along the way, they're always going to have the better team, right? And they're always going to be able to get ahead of the free-to-play player, which when they face off a free-to-play versus pay-to-win player, that puts the pay-to-win team, at least on paper, at an advantage. But how big is that advantage? We are here to talk about that, particularly for eFootball. It could be different for every game, but in this case, does a pay-to-win player have a huge advantage with the players that they get over the players that the free-to-win player gets? Again, on paper, it looks like a huge advantage. But when you look at on the pitch, take away skill, right? Let's say it's two equally skilled players. Is there that big of a difference, or is it somewhat of an illusion? I asked this question because, as many of you know, I went from a full pay-to-win team, I mean as God squad as you can get, minus a few of the players that just didn't come out yet, like a Patrick Vieira, right? To an entirely free-to-play, road to glory type team where I started from scratch and had to earn every player that I got. So there is no doubt a disadvantage, especially in eFootball, because on the free-to-play squad, it's like a slow drip to improve your team. Off the bat, they do help out with some early signings to get you boosted and get you kind of a head start. But after that, you barely get any coins, which is the way that you could spin for the top players in the game. You get very little chance at getting any of these top players. And then on top of that, people don't think about this, but you have to train your players up. You have to develop them from their lowest level to their highest level, and you do this with training programs. Not only that, but you also need GP as you go along to purchase certain things. And when you spin for players, let's say I go for Hullet. Let's just say, for instance, I put in $50 and I get Hullet. That's around roughly 50 players that, I get Hullet's 49 players I sell away, and I get training programs as well as GP. So when you're spinning for these top players, not only are you getting the Hullets, the Patrick Vieira's, whoever you're spinning for, but you also get a ton of GP and a ton of training programs to instantly train your players up. Whereas a free-to-play player, this is something I'm dealing with right now, I have several players that I'd like to play that could absolutely help the team, whether they're coming off the bench or going into the starting lineup, but I don't have enough training programs. Not only that, but it's taken me forever to save up to get that one player I want from the standard player list. I literally only want Rodri, who's around 450, 460K, something like that, in GP, and it has taken me all the way until now, which, is weeks in, to just get that one top standard list player. So you look at the difference there, not even talking about having the best players, but also being able to instantly train your players up, instantly purchase in-game whatever it is you need to purchase with GP. That's something that you have to take time with in, a free-to-play situation. So you might even have these very good players, right? Still not the best players, but very good players that you can't play for a while. So it is even more of a disadvantage than just not having the very best players in the game. However, like I said, putting that huge disadvantage aside, because it, without a doubt, especially in eFootball, other games, they equal it out more, or they put the pay-to-win player in more check. In eFootball, it is as wild and crazy as you can get as far as the advantage created. But again, equally skilled when you look at the top players that you get from paying versus the good players that you get from grinding, from free to play, and you get out on the pitch. Is there truly a huge difference? And so far, I would say this. The very top god tier players, such as the players I've been talking about, the Hullets, the Vieiras, even the Rijkaards, right? Those players, without a doubt, give a huge advantage to the team that has them and creates a huge problem for the team that is going up against them. However, outside of those god tier players, even though the other, epics, for instance, or Showtime players are very good, they are not significantly better than the best players that a free-to-play player would use. For example, I was able to get Mbappe, Van Dijk, Foden, and then Trent Alexander-Arnold from the skill ups. The other three I got from almost like a welcome to the game objective thing that you get when you start a new account. And my Mbappe, who's playing up top right now with 2 free epics that I was able to get, right? The timing of me starting my Road to Glory, my free-to-play Road to Glory, was perfect, because typically speaking, you aren't going to get 3 free epics right off the bat, and that's what I was able to get through Owen, Batistuta, and Van Boyten. So I just wanted to point out that my free-to-play team is pretty far ahead of a typical free-to-play team. But back to that Mbappe. Using him, I many times noticed his value over Batistuta. Now, Owen, yes, he's an absolute beast. But even there, if I had to go Mbappe and take Owen out, or I had to choose one of the two, I would not be at such a huge disadvantage to have Mbappe instead. Yes, I would take Owen over Mbappe, especially this particular Mbappe that is, let's just say, a free-to-play version, or he's only going to make the starting lineup in a free-to-play team. But even though I would choose Michael Owen over Mbappe, and arguably Batistuta as well, I would still have a very good striker in Mbappe. It wouldn't be a disadvantage to the point where it was noticeable even. I would be just fine with Mbappe, and that's the same way across the board. So what is it that gets people to spend all this money for these players in? Outside of the god tier players that clearly do make a difference and are absolutely worth spending for if any player is, what about all the rest of the players? Well, there's a few different things. For one, not all of them, but most of them are superstar players that are well known, whether you're an avid football fan or just a casual. So having those players just based on their superstar status in the football world and their skill level absolutely makes players want to purchase them, whether it translates in game or not. And then you have 2 things, both boosters as well as Showtime skills, which are typically speaking withheld for these very best players that you have to pay to get out of these boxes, right? So as far as performance goes, those are literally the only differences between the free-to-play type players and these top players that you will pay to get. The one Showtime skill that not even every player you will spend for, right, pay to get, will have. But if they do, they'll have one Showtime skill, and the boosters, which they're given one, and you can add another one that gives you, the one you add will be like +1 in 4, roughly, categories. And then the booster they give can range from +1 to +4. So what it comes down to is, if you think purchasing a player for their name, for one Showtime skill, possibly, as well as 2 boosters that give you roughly like +5 in attributes in about 4 categories, if that's worth spending the money that you spend. So for me, now having a free-to-play team, I can't justify all the money I put in for these top players. Outside of Ruud Gullit and Rijkaard, those were the 2 players, as I have deemed in previous videos, as eFootball untouchables or eFootball kings. They no doubt are superior to every other player in the game within their position. Those 2 as well as a few others. But outside of them, there's not enough difference to warrant spending the money it takes, especially with the gambling type of setup that eFootball has, where it is not guaranteed when you put in X amount of money that you will get even one of these players. So obviously it is relative to what your finances are, right? If money is not an object for you, then you could justify purchasing anything. And in the case of eFootball, spin away, get as many of these players as you want since, like I said, money is not an object. But for the vast majority of us, I wouldn't say that you can justify spinning for these pay for players as opposed to the free-to-play top players that you would get. Now, like I said, the training programs, the GP, some of these things you get from selling off the extra players that you don't want, that could definitely be worth it because it is a nuisance having to crawl along with how eFootball, has their free-to-play setup, which no doubt is by design. They want players to spin for players. So, of course, they're not going to make it so easy to get this top free-to-play team. However, when you look at just the performance on the pitch, that is where I would say it is not worth it to go out and spin for a vast majority of these players outside of the God tier players that no doubt make a difference. So, you let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you agree that it's not worth spinning for a vast majority? Do you think no way, it is 100% worth it? Maybe it makes the game fun for you. You consider it an investment. Whatever it is, let me know what you think. And as always, keep grinding, keep having fun. I will see you on the next one. Peace out.